Did everybody get a printed agenda? Thank you. Sorry about that. No worries. There you go. Right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight and braving the snow. We're holding the Orinoco EDA board meeting. Today is Thursday, December 19th at 6:32. Starting a bit late due to some technical difficulties, but thank you for your patience. So we'll get started and we'll do a call to order and roll call. Rebecca, do you want to do the roll call?
Yep. Ryland Eichhorst, Jamie Rothy,
Here.
Paul Pendergrass, Adam Beedling,
Here.
Jeff Shupe, Jan Thronson,
Here.
and Kathy Gable.
Here. Great. The second agenda item is approval of December 19 minutes. December 19 EDA meeting agenda, sorry, not minutes, meeting agenda. It's in your packet. Anybody have any questions or changes? Not, we'll look for an approval of the meeting agenda. So moved. All right, we got a motion. Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, also in your packet is the October 22nd, 2024 EDA board EDA meeting minutes as well. And we're looking for approval of that as well. So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion at all? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. The next agenda item is public input or any guests. Hello.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
yeah.
Thank you for coming. Anything that you'd like to bring up at all?
I don't think so. No.
Sounds great. Thank you for being here.
Yep.
All right. Moving right along. We'll move to new business. Rebecca, do you want to walk through that?
Yep. Commercial permits update.
Pause one second. I think we have another guest online. Joy, can you hear? Is it Joy?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Hi, Joy.
Okay. I just have a couple concerns that I wanted to see at some point if you can speak to this. I'm concerned that some members of the community and some on council feel that the grant brought to the EDA's attention by the Age-Friendly Orinoco Area Committee, that it only benefits seniors. And also some concern that some may feel that if the grant is accepted, we do get the grant funds, that the funds go to the age-friendly Orinoco area, which is incorrect. It actually goes to the EDA and the city. So Rebecca, you helped write that grant. Do you feel that it only benefits the seniors in Orinoco?
No, absolutely not, because the walking paths that it would be looking at, as well as the benches and other upgrades, those would be benefiting every resident of the community, I believe anyway. So it would benefit the youth, it would benefit the aging communities and everyone in between.
Okay, because there's been a lot of talk that it's not really an important grant because the median age of Orinoco is 36.5, which is actually about the age of almost every city in Olmsted County. So I just wanted to make that very clear that it's not looking just for the elderly, it's looking for all residents, correct? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Joy.
No. So Rebecca, I think we're going to touch base on that later, but maybe we can address that and talk about just making sure that there's clarification, or if there's clarification needed, we see what that process looks like.
Yeah, did you want to do that now or at that other when it
Yeah,
comes
once
up?
we get to that agenda item.
Perfect.
If you want to move forward with new business, that would be great.
Yep. So for the commercial permits update, I did check with Renee before she had left, that there haven't been any new commercial permits issued in the last 60 days. Just to note so that everybody is aware, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, already know that Renee is no longer with the city. She did resign and she has taken another position. So right now we will not have a city clerk. So I will do my best to make sure that I keep up with finding out about the commercial updates, but it'll all be dependent on if Jason is able to help me out with that or not.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
So next on here, we have our 2025 EDA work plan approval. And one more note on that is that while we are looking at this plan, I do want everyone to know that we may not be able to get to everything on the plan. Recently, at the most recent city council meeting, they did decide to go ahead and put the CETA contract in half. So I will now only have 2 days per month to work on Orinoco items. So it is going to limit the amount that I can accomplish, but I will do my best to make sure that I show council that the time is worth it and we can keep moving forward.
I appreciate that update. I think this is a action item, right, for approval. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep, and you should all have a copy in your packets, and it should be updated from everything that we talked about from the October and the September meetings.
Okay. So maybe what I'll do is we'll want to look for a motion for approval in a second, and then we can open up for discussion. And then we'll see if we want to make any changes and amend the approval if needed. Does that sound okay for a process?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking for an approval of the 2025 EDA work plan.
So moved.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. Okay, so let's open it up for discussion. I have some thoughts I'd like to share, but I'd like to open it up to the group first before I speak. Is there anything that you would like to bring up with your initial motion?
I guess a question is that you said you have been your hours been cut to 32 hours a month. You were working 64?
No, it's cut to 16. She was working.
Okay, so you were at 32 and you're at 16. I guess my question is, at the city council, was there a reason given?
City council didn't feel that grant writing services or commercial services were needed at this time. They felt like there were other priorities that the city should be focusing on. So we initially, at the first time that we met for the budget meeting, we said, okay, we understand that money can be an issue. So we removed our request for the $15,000 that we were asking for to start our revolving loan fund in an effort to try and get them to let us keep our contract. From what I heard from Jason and Ryland, they were trying to cut the contract completely, but they were able to negotiate doing a halftime. So I will now have 16 hours.
If you go to the city council meeting, it was 4.5 hours Tuesday night. At 2 hours and 45 minutes into it, the EDA, they began their discussion. And it really gives you a much clearer picture there than anybody can describe what rationale they were using and what explanation they had. To me, as an economic development committee person, it didn't make a lot of sense. So I would encourage you to go on that. It's on YouTube. And it's the city council meeting, and the EDA information starts. They're talking about the fire department, and then they go into the EDA. But the discussion is led by Ryland showed tremendous support for us. But the discussion was led by Jim Phillips and Paul Pendergrass. Paul describing our work on this committee as just us knocking on doors and asking people if they want to split their property. Now, I'm listening to this in the comfort of my own home, and I'm thinking, I don't remember ever talking about knocking on doors and splitting property. So I would just encourage you all to listen to that and come to your own conclusion with why the decision was made. I don't know whether the city of Orinoco has no money. I mean, they didn't talk about that, but I don't know. I was very disappointed, and I was also disappointed that we didn't have better representation by the member of council who sits on this committee.
So my question would be is going the second, we're up and running for the second year. Actually, we only got 6 months started the first year in we started in June, so we only had 6 months. And last year, about this time in December, we were finishing our first 6 months. And I guess I'm a little taken back by it. Paul Pendergrass was not on the city council at that point. He was appointed, but the members that were on city council pushed to have EDA here and thought it was a good thing and that was needed. And Jim Phillips was behind it. Jim Richards was behind it. The whole council was totally behind it to do that. Now what I'm hearing is that they're having second thoughts about EDA.
I think what I heard or what I felt, the way I took it was what they were basing it on didn't have anything to do with what we actually did as EDA. I don't feel like they had the knowledge necessary of what we actually do. I mean, again, like I said, Paul described our organization as door knocking on people's doors and asking them to split their property. Have we ever done anything like that?
No. We've listened to, if I sit here, we've listened to people come in about developments, 2 developments, if they want to do the developments and what was possibly could be there. It was on this meeting is what we've had presented before us. We've been trying to get our bylaws done. We're trying to get everything up and running. It takes a while to get up and running. I guess at this point, I would like to have the council come to us and explain to us at our meeting here, just exactly, I mean, I'm coming out, it's snowy. I was gonna be at the last meeting.
Right.
Some people didn't show up. I've attended every meeting that could be attended, and they asked me to, if I'd be willing to sit on it. I guess I would now like, approach of the council to come and see, if they think we're viable or if this whole thing that we started here is they don't want it anymore or what did it tell? I guess I need to know. Be sure up if I'm gonna take my time to put my energy into this, I guess I wanna know that we're being supported.
Yeah.
That's just my own opinion. I don't let the rest of the board speak because I see here tonight, again, we're short of the people attending.
Jan, I felt the same way. I felt like it was almost insulting to those of us, including Rebecca, who is busting a hump at this, to really do something that we need, that is necessary for Orinoco, whether we want it or not. Economic development is coming. And the other comment that was made was, it was a real, a few just real short comments about, well, Orinoco already has a brand. We're the Gold Rush community. Well, that brand, what was that, 1972 when we came up with that brand? And I'm not saying it's not a bad brand for Orinoco, but I'm saying branding is a whole lot more than just calling a city a Gold Rush city. But I think the whole thing was minimized there too. And I might be wrong, but I think we've already got the grant to do the branding. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yes.
$10,000 grant to do branding, and now they're saying they don't want us to do that. I agree. I want to hear what it is that they want from this.
Well, yeah, and I believe that January, you have a new board, you have new members. And I guess should be approached by the council and say, what do you want? I would like to know the first year, what they expect of us and what their expectations are for us.
I also wondered if we could go back and ask them to reconsider this motion from December, because you had one city council member who was on their way out. They tried to get it to where this other city council member was still there, but they realized that they couldn't. So his replacement was here this last time. He was with Ryland and supporting economic development, but.
Well, if I say the first of the year, I'll let anyone else who wants to speak on it speak, and then I'll do something.
I guess I had I'm not sure that I really heard what the justification was for wanting to shrink or get rid of the EDA. And I guess I always looked at it as, we're here to support growth, make growth happen in a responsible way, because growth seems inevitable. So doing so in a responsible manner and having what we've started, I mean, I feel like we're still in a toddler stage and just starting to, get some teeth into what we're doing and move in the right direction. I feel like Rebecca does a great job getting us free money, getting us grants and paying for herself. So why are we cutting her from the budget when I think she's mostly paying for herself or more with grants? So I imagine there's some principle, I don't want to grow, or I do want to grow, and it's, I don't want to grow now. Beyond that, I don't understand.
That makes it challenging for us as individuals trying to serve on a committee, You want to help.
If the committee is, if our committee is not wanted or not just, then let's get out of here and
Yeah.
shut it down. I mean, I don't think we want to meet just to meet.
Right.
But if there's no purpose, and in a year and a half, we haven't gotten a ton accomplished, but we have laid the groundwork and gotten community input. And I feel like these are the important things that need to be happening to grow in that responsible fashion. So.
A year and a half, and we just had the sewer for half a year of that,
Right,
so.
and you can't expect these things to move from any kind of government, especially new little baby government like this. It's not gonna happen fast.
And I will say at the budget meeting that I attended, I had been asked to attend that budget meeting by the city administrator just to be able to explain to them what the EDA does and what accomplishments we've had. So I did read off a good list of accomplishments for them. And we also provided them a copy with our work plan. So they did get a chance to see all of that. But kind of like what Kathy said, they kept bringing up the fire department. So I think they were trying to redirect EDA funds towards more fire department support.
And I can accept anything that they want to do, because we're just a committee that works underneath them, but I need to now know direction, because the board that was there was the board that pushed to make sure that we had EDA here. And so I'll put a motion forward that
We've already got a motion, though. I think we're in discussion before you make that motion.
Yeah, so I think we need to, we'll finish this out. Let's, on this action item, we can take some action. I have a couple thoughts I just want to add to the group. And then we'll take action, and then we'll do your motion. So I agree with what everything's been said. I think that we were tasked to establish an EDA board from the ground up. There was nothing here prior. And we were asked to do it in a community-driven way. Like we're very purposeful about bringing the community with us, and that it didn't feel like it was doing to the community, but we were doing with the community, which oftentimes can feel a bit slower. But that's, I think you could see that in our actions with the open houses that Rebecca helped to lead, the engagement and outreach and the work that happened there. I think that we were intentional about working together. You might recall in the beginning, maybe not as new members, but we had multiple working sessions on making sure that we understood TIF districts and understood all these different kind of components. And we did that together as a group. And I think to me that was important, and how we worked together. I think that in order to grow, we do have to be thoughtful. I think there is a lot of nervousness about what growth is. People are nervous, and it is a bit of an unknown, but by having a framework, it allows us, that it's community driven, allows us to respond and have thoughtful conversation. So it is disappointing that the budget is being cut because that means that we can do less of the work. I mean, I think Rebecca, I think you're spot on that the list that you created, the amount of grants that you've brought into our community to help us do this work has been phenomenal. And by having you only work half of that time, that means, I mean, an easy math number would be half the amount of money. But that also means they're going to have to, reprioritize what you're working on.
And thank you. I appreciate that. And I do want to let each of you know that I am fully committed to making sure that each and every one of those hours is spent incredibly productively, because I want to make sure when they review the budget next year that that they see the worth of the work that everyone here has been doing.
Can I ask what the annual budget for EDA is or was?
32,000 previously, and so it went down to 16.
I don't have any concept of our budget. Maybe I should know more, and probably should pay attention to the Orinoco budget and how it's spent. But to me, that seems, not, it doesn't seem like a lot. And but maybe it's because all of our taxes are really high, or maybe it's because there's chunks of land all over town that we could sell and pay for 4 years or 8 years of EDA with one or two buildable lots. I don't really understand why that's a big budget item, but I also am not in charge of, I don't want to be in charge of budgeting the, Orinoco expenses.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised with that too. I'd never been told what the budget for Orinoco is or what the income with the taxes for Orinoco is, so I have no idea. I didn't realize we were in financial dire straits. Maybe we are.
Well, and I guess another question that comes to mind for me though, and the other side of it is do we need an EDA? Is our community big enough to need these elements of government already? And I feel like on the front end, that's what city council was planning for, right, with the city water coming through and I don't know, to me, it does seem necessary, I guess. I mean, thinking it through a little further, but they're small.
Yeah. So I wonder, I know that the group has been working on with the motion out there to approve the 2025 EDA work plan. I would love to be able to see it move forward as approved because we've put a lot of work into this and I think it does represents our work well. I think Rebecca, you're spot on that we probably need to prioritize or reprioritize and making sure that we are that you're using your time the best of the ability. But probably also, it seems like the city council is disconnected from the work plan itself and maybe has some misunderstandings about what we're working on. So perhaps maybe in what Jan, what you're getting to is that we approve the work plan knowing that we want to come back and have a conversation with council about what the priorities are that they're seeing and making sure that they're seeing the work plan and that we can just then maybe at that point, just do some reprioritizing in the work plan itself. Because I want to be able to capture where we're saying the things we want to focus on, but we probably need to have some council input and the new council will be helpful with that as well.
Yeah.
And just to share with everyone too, unfortunately, we can't invite the council into our meeting unless we were to host a joint meeting. But we certainly can have it placed on the agenda to have EDA members speak and ask questions or have a discussion at the council meeting. So that is something that we could look at doing at the January council meeting as well, if you'd like me to look at doing that.
When is, I'm gonna be I'm out of pocket in January, the week of the 20th, prior to that. Well, I just think, but again, I guess I would, because this is all up in the air, to approve this, I would table it because I guess if they're gonna spend 16 or 32 or whatever it is, I wanna hear from them what their intentions are, what they think of EDA, because maybe they even think 16,000 is too much. Again, I guess to approve 16 and then say, well, would they give us 32 or whatever they do that in the future? My point is I would table it until we hear from the council to say, what are we doing here?
The work plan we'll be able to go forward with, whether it's 32 hours or 16. When they did that, they actually have already set the budget, so there won't be a chance to renegotiate that until budget time the following year.
So we'll end up, they've already told, then it's 16 and to talk to them, what it doesn't make any difference because they've already made their mind up.
You mean that city council meeting was to determine the budget and they voted on that and it's a done deal for the whole year?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
That's why we had attended a couple of the budget meetings trying to push forward some of that EDA agenda.
And I find it rather odd that I sat here in this chair last meeting and Paul sat there. And Paul Pendergraph never, when we were talking about making the motions and doing things, never said a word to us or brought up in discussion the opportunity to tell us his likes or dislikes of what he felt EDA was. And I think that was, if you're gonna serve on a committee, I think it's important. He wears two hats.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's in this one and he says that, I think it's important that he tells us what he's thinking at this meeting so that I don't get blindsided.
That's another thing that I felt with that too. usually the city council liaison to any committees I've ever been on have been there as in a supportive role of the committee that they're serving on. And I question because of the comprehension of what we do that he expressed in that city council meeting, maybe he's not the best fit. And is there something we can do there to have a council member that is more understands more the mission of this organization? I was really surprised that his definition of what we did was.
Yeah, definitely, it seems like, and I'd have to go back and listen to it again, which I will, or go back and listen, but I think it sounds like he misrepresented what what this board does, the commission does. Which I think is something that we definitely need to look into.
And the council can make those requests in January too, because that's in January is when they will do the committee assignments at their council meeting. So if there is anything that you'd like put in as far as any requests, we certainly can do that as well. And feel free to reach out to me post meeting as well if you want to have a discussion about that too.
That sounds good. It seems like it's probably a question that would come from the chair, so maybe I can follow up with Rylan.
Absolutely.
Out. I agree that it's really important that the person that's representing us, they don't, that is bringing back information, correct information to the council.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you have to agree with it, but it means that it needs to be correct. And if he was saying at the meeting that all we're doing is knocking on doors and splitting lots, I think it's a misrepresentation of the work, which has also been documented in the process, so.
And they have been provided EDA minutes in all of their packets.
Okay. I'll make sure to follow up with Ryland if the group is fine with that.
That's great.
Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor. Let's go back to that. It's the 2025 EDA work plan approval. It seems like we're probably going to need to get some, and I don't know, Rebecca, is that staff work where you look at your budget to say, this is what I think I can do, or this is where it goes, or do you have recommendation from staff, or have you had an experience like this before where you've had to readjust a work plan?
Yes, and what we've done in the past it happened a little more in the middle of the work plan. So what we did is we just kind of did a quick prioritization, and as projects are able to come up, because there might be a grant that pops up that takes item 3 and bumps it above item 2, not because we prioritized it that way, but because the opportunity presented itself. Which is why I would say that the plan could still be approved. But we would just have to make sure that we're sure about those things that we want to make sure we focus on the most, and that everything else in there is something that if opportunity presented itself, we'd be okay with moving forward. But especially because the contract was cut, I will not be taking on any projects for anything outside of the EDA until I've had it approved by the board.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the hours are being spent the way you guys would like.
Right. One other question I have as we're thinking about this approval, just to Jan, to what you brought up is, and what our limitations are, or constraints are with meeting with the council to better understand their priorities. So you said, if we meet with them, it has to be a public meeting, so it'd be like a joint meeting. Has there been a scenario where we've done a work group where it's not a quorum, but we can still like representatives from each group meet to talk?
Yep.
Or have you seen that happen before? And do you have recommendations that one way works better than another? And then I would love to hear the group's response to that as well.
Well, what we've done in other communities is we've actually set up, it would be a joint meeting in one community, we did a joint meeting of the city council, planning and zoning, and the EDA. And in a lot of communities, we do that every 6 months just to make sure that everybody's on the same page about projects. In case, planning and zoning has questions about things that are being looked at in the EDA. They want to know what's happening, but they may not be at the point where someone can put that business in front of them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or same thing, like in official capacity, same thing towards city council. So it's sometimes just helpful to be able to provide that discussion, and then you're able to have a very open discussion like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it would happen as a council meeting because it's the highest body. And then that way, if there's a quorum of all 3, it doesn't matter because it's considered a joint discussion.
I think that, when I think of that, instead of having a meeting with them, I think that if they do the assignments come January, we will either have a new face or not have a face on there, and, rather than joint meeting of city council, whoever they send from the council, there'll be two people. We can, at that time, the committee can ask them, the two members. I can get a feeling from the two members that come from the council here, what they think of us and what we need to do. Without, and maybe later take it to the council, but I think the opinion of two out of the five is gonna give me a very good feeling on how the council feels about us and what our approach is and what they want, whatever. So I don't need to have that meeting with the council at this time because the council gives new assignments. I don't know who they're gonna be. And at that point, the new members coming on this board, that's a question at our next meeting in January, and I don't know if I'll be, but but the point is, at that point, we need to ask, how they support, because they're members coming here, or do they support or get a feeling from them, and I can, then I can decide whether I want to go before the council or do something different, because we'll know, I mean,
I think you get a good feel, I think you'll know once you listen to that city council meeting at 2 hours, 45 minutes into it, you'll get a real good idea of what they think of, or what two members think of us.
that's 2 out of 5. We've got,
But we had 3 voting.
and there's 5 on the council, and so we'll have to see what, I guess, they proved 16,000. I guess we can move forward with 16,000 and move forward with our committee on that part of it, and then I will know when I talk to the two people that come to this committee how they feel about it, and if 16,000 hampers us and we can't function with that, then they'll have to decide what they want to do at that point. I mean, they give us and told us what the money and what they want from you and from us, and we will try to function on that and go forward with that. And if something comes up that we need more, whatever, you always go to the well and ask again. The worst they ever can say is no.
So how about this? Because we have the motion on the table for the work plan approval. Let's move through that. And then on walk on items, let's add the discussion of, if we need to take any action regarding recommendations for a new council representative. And then we can also pick up the discussion if we think we want to do some type of joint meeting. I have some questions about some best practices in that, but we can move that to later, and have that discussion and walk on items. Does that sound okay to the
Yep.
group? Okay, so, knowing that we have a reduced budget, and I appreciate again the conversation. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion that we want to talk about with the EDA work plan, the 2025 plan? Or do we feel like we're ready to,
I think the only thing or my only thought, I think maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago, Jamie, you might have said something about what's gonna be the heart of the city, and I feel like that's, I've thought on that a fair amount, like that seems like a really important thing for us to identify is not necessarily government buildings, but is where the community gathers gonna be Old Orinoco, with upkeep and redevelopment, or the newer chunk, closer to 52, but where's our gathering place gonna be and why? And I feel like that's gonna be an important focal point of, among the many other things to focus on.
yeah, I think it's picked up in the work plan because I think pieces of it are, I think it seems like our group has talked about that there's multiple priorities that could happen, thinking about how we strengthen our Main Street and the old kind of areas, and then, what are we attracting in on the outside areas, and it's probably a balance of both with community input, of course. It seemed like it showed up strong of wanting a sense of community and not just being a Highway 52, all kinds of big things there, but recognizing that there is benefits of those things. I think there's probably more discussion within that space of saying, how do we prioritize that? I also feel like it's going to show up a little bit in our community branding RFP approval as
Yeah,
well.
I was just gonna say that.
Through that process, because I would imagine lead us through a couple exercises to really draw that out, and then that would show up in the language and the branding of the city as well.
Yeah.
Does that feel good to you? Okay, Rebecca, anything else to add on
Sorry,
that?
we can request that they make that a part of a priority of the plan as well, is kind of locating that that heart of the city. And I think that that would be something they would absolutely be able to tie in with that process.
Okay.
You know, I'll just say, when you said about the branding and stuff, it is, Gold Rush has been 50 years. I mean, that's, Orinoco's known for Gold Rush. There's, St. Charles' Western Days, different things. But the branding, Rebecca, the people come out and everything else, you know, it has come up. Orinoco is Gold Rush, and we're going to enter the golden age in the next 4 years, which is all gold and golden age and everything else and what you got going. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, and we have an RFP to discuss a little bit later that's
Okay.
specifically just about that branding, so we can talk all that in just a couple minutes here. But I will also just say that branding is a lot more than just Orinoco Gold Rush. So there's a lot more that we'll talk about that kind of goes into that.
Correct.
So any other questions on the work plan? All right, so there's a motion and a second. We'll say all in favor of approving the 2025 EDA work plan. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Rebecca, thanks again for all your work. There was a lot of community input and gathering and prioritizing and
Yes.
synthesizing. And I think your expertise did a great job at working through all of that. So thank you, and thanks to your organization for helping us.
Thank you.
Thanks for this group's continued commitment to getting that done. All right, do you want to move us to the next agenda item?
Yes, so the next is that community branding RFP approval. And I would say that the copy of the RFP should be in each of your packets. I would say that the very first paragraph showing the purpose of the RFP, if everybody would just take a moment to read that, it kind of gives a better idea of what it is we're looking at, because a lot of it has to do more with developing marketing strategies for bringing in commercial properties and residential properties, and being able to make sure that it's the type of thing that we've expressed that we're looking for. And it kind of helps you with those tactics, as well as branding like logos, just kind of updating and sprucing up websites. Obviously, our website just got redone, so that wouldn't be needed. But a lot of it is that strategic branding rather than just Orinoco Gold Rush. People know what that is as an event, but what does it mean for the community? And I think being able to define that vision and define what it is to be from Orinoco is kind of what it's gearing towards, if that makes sense.
So before we open it up for discussion, does anybody have any questions of Rebecca in here?
And the scope of work is showing what we're actually looking for from someone who is going to do this process with us. And it kind of tells what those deliverables are that we're looking for.
So I do have a question. I think just reflecting on some feedback, Jan, as you said, like our community has a long history with kind of the Gold Rush event and the activities surrounding it and the community connection. I think in here, the language that I think has been seen, and maybe I missed it, but my question is oftentimes when we talk about branding, people can feel like they're left behind, like we're trying to brand ourselves into something new. And I think it's important for us to strengthen our organization and build from our history. Like, it's not that we're leaving it behind, but we want to say, what are we known for? What are we great for? What is the history? And what are our community goals, which we've been building? And then how does the brand help us to show that? And when I was reading through the RFP, I didn't see that language in there of strengthening our organization or strengthening our community or leaning into the history. Like, some of those things I think is what was missing for me, and just making sure that that's captured. Do you see that in here anywhere? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't see it in specific language, but in the scope of work on 1 and 2, it deals with having an advisory or steering committee that would be made up of different board members and residents of the city. as well as various focus groups that would be going with, you know, people from the business community, people from the, you know, age-friendly community. And then talking to everybody about what their goals are to see and what their priorities are for the plan. So I think that it's something that comes up during the process, but maybe not already in here, but we could certainly add something if there's language that you would like to see.
Other questions for Rebecca?
Because for the RFP that they're going to send in, we're hopefully going to get a good number of them. And then we'll be able to review them. We will have to change the date though, because we do have currently the date being the deadline of January 14th, but that was if we were to have approved it last month's meeting. So we will want to bump that about a month.
Yep.
But then we'd be able to take a look at all those RFPs and see what type of product they're looking at providing for us. And that can also kind of help us with that selection process and making sure that you're getting exactly what you're looking for.
Sometimes in these RFPs, there's a description of the city included in it. And I mean, I think that's part of what we're working towards is building a strong description of who we are. So as just reflecting on other RFPs I've been a part of, oftentimes it says, you know, Rochester is a community of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it leans into its defined kind of brand and as the city does. And I know that's what we're working towards. So, you know, I'm comfortable moving forward without that in there, just knowing that it should be a step in the process that we are, you know, that we're looking to strengthen it. And maybe we're just talking about that here, so it's acknowledged, but and then I'm assuming it's going to show up in the work because again, it's community driven, and I think that's what we're hearing from our community is that
Yep, absolutely.
it's growth and it's strengthening who we are.
Rebecca, as I look at your plan, and everything else, or when I look at your road stuff, I guess it's, I get kind of locked into, I think it'd be, as you've got everything written and what they gotta come up with, it'd be very interesting to have someone come in from the outside and that will click some ideas as they start talking, the rest of us, and have a fresh look at what they think of a town of our size and going what they think they see as a brand or as a reason, and to work off that. So I was kind of excited about that just to see, you know, in advertising and everything else, you always wonder, you know, that was a good commercial and that one not so good. And you wonder how that person come up with that. Pretty creative. And so I look back at this as a way, and the way it's written is that the community is definitely involved as they go along. So they kind of throw some ideas out to the community and things and say, well, we kind of like that. So we don't send them down a rabbit hole. And we say, we kind of like that. Can you expound on that? Can we kind of go that direction and creative mind to go more? So I think the way it's written, as I read through it and everything else, it opens up to a lot of things of involvement. And I don't want to put some stipulations on them because I want to see what some creative minds that are in this for a living come up with. It might be something that is totally takes us by surprise. Say, wow, I would never have thought of that. So
Yeah, it's great that it's community driven. You know, again, community's involved, and
yeah.
and then, like you said, had professional services will really, I think, help elevate and help us understand what the opportunities are. So with that, maybe we'll look for a motion for approval of the community branding RFP.
I'll make a motion to that.
Is there a
We approve
second?
the RF.
Okay, approve the RFP.
Second.
In a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for that discussion, everybody. That was great. I'm looking forward to this work. All right, old business. Want to walk us through that section, Rebecca?
Yep, and old business should be real quick because it's just some updates. We are still waiting on approval for the age-friendly Minnesota grant. That one is for the amount of $77,000 that we're waiting on. That's the one that I believe Joy had been mentioning earlier on in the meeting. For our approved grants, we've got our Smith Small Town grant that we've just been approved, and that has to do with our RFP that we're going to be sending out. And if the Compeer financial one, we did go ahead and get that one closed out, so that one has been completed for the year.
Quick question, Rebecca.
Yeah.
You're the one that has applied for all these grants, or you and your organization?
Mhm.
Is that correct? I thought
Yeah.
so. Because a comment was also made at the city council meeting that it's very easy to write a grant. And I don't know how many people have ever written grants. I've tried to write one and I didn't find it really easy. But I think that was really a misconception too, that they were talking about that minimizing the amount of work that goes into grant writing. From my little bit of experience, it's not for the faint of heart. And it takes a lot of tracking and it takes a lot of persistence and just finding finding all the information to go into it once you've found it. So I was taken back by that statement also at the city council meeting that minimized your grant writing ability, because it looks like here, just in the last year, we've got $93,000 worth of grants on the table that are possibly coming our way. That's a lot of money. That's excellent. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did stress to the city council as well that we will be applying this year for, there's a fund from the state where we can get up to $250,000 to start our revolving loan fund. So we will be putting
Wow.
into that one as well.
Wow.
There again, I think that the people coming on the calls, whatever. If we explain to them what's going on and what's all going on, I mean. The $10,000 grant for we just passed is to do a branding thing, to do that. It gives a whole idea that doesn't come out of the Orinoco, that you've got some pretty intelligent people to put something on there that could enhance. And these projects out on the highway and different things, people can see something and they say, that's where I want to head. That's where I want to build.
Are there places, Rebecca, I know the details typically are, in our packets. Do you see other communities? I'm assuming that it becomes public when we apply for it because it's going through this approval process. But I'm just wondering, maybe as we move forward, there's some discussion on, how, just making sure our community understands the work that you're doing and the impact, the grants that we're going for, and how do we make that as easily as acceptable or accessible as possible, so that they see those things. And I'm not looking for a solution today, but as we move forward, maybe that's something that we keep an eye on, as, how do we make sure?
Absolutely.
Because these dollars, like the marketing one, as you suggested, I mean, we do not have a budget for that. So we would not be able to do that work, but for the grant. So it's,
Right.
And some of the other things that are coming through. So it's important that we do that. And it's so important for us to understand how much time you're putting towards that. So as we think about prioritization in 2025, we're finding a good balance. So.
Absolutely.
Any other feedback on old business at all? All right. So let's move into the next agenda item, the EDA Director's Report.
Well, there shouldn't be too much really extra on there. It just shows the conversations that have been had over the past month. The discussion with the city council regarding the CETA contract that took place on November 19th. Some other meetings that we had with some of the area developers for Ari and Jamie of Hamilton Real Estate. And then the work that we've done on the age-friendly grant, the Orinoco work plan, and the RFP for the branding.
Good. Do you happen to know if the Hamilton Real Estate Group is planning on coming back to visit us at all at the EDA level? We really don't have an approval process, but I've noticed that, like with the King Development and others, people are choosing to come and provide updates here. Do you know if that is a step?
We certainly can reach out to them and ask them if they would. I think they were taking a pause until the first of the year. I think they wanted to see what happened with the elections before coming back, because they didn't feel very supported previously.
I mean, I don't want to speak for the group, but I'll speak for myself, is that I think that it has been helpful when, even when they don't need our support in a development, it's great to have, an update. So I would appreciate any opportunity for discussion. I know that that group specifically has been reaching out to neighbors again for, discussion, but in your discussions, it would be great to invite them, to provide an update at some point, just so that we have a better understanding.
Yep, I'll make sure that I send them out an invite for our next 2 meetings and see if they're able to attend either of those.
That would sound okay to the rest of the group?
It does. Again, in the city council meeting, one of the members spoke as though the Hamilton group was coming and developing something, and that's another reason we only need halftime EDA, because we've got things like that in the works, and
Okay.
I'm confused, so yeah, it would be great to have an update by them.
Any other questions on the EDA director's report for Rebecca? Do we have to accept these? Is this a motion to accept, or is this just part of the packet? And
No, just part of the packet, just for your guys' personal information.
thank you. All right, so we'll move on to walk on items. We had 2 items that we wanted to discuss in this area. I think one, we just want to solidify the process for, it was brought up that in January, typically city council reassigns or assigns people to these committees. And I don't know if there's a formal process, Rebecca, that we have to follow to.
Is it Ryland +1?
It's Ryland +1.
They're usually what happens is they're nominated by the mayor for each one. But a lot of times there's just that interdiscussion with the council as to who has what types of interests,
Okay.
personal interests. But I know that if the committee feels that they would like to see a change in the seat, we certainly request that. I can't guarantee that that's what council will do, but we could certainly make that request that it be a different individual.
So I guess there's 2 thoughts in my mind. I think we should just double check that with Ryland as the mayor and chair of this committee, like what is the process, so that we're following whatever is appropriate. And then following whatever request process. So if it's through Ryland, and that's the process, or if it's through another process that we're,
It's my understanding that the city, the mayor selects individuals and us that are on it already, then the board votes here.
to accept or.
If your term is up, you can nominate and they can accept, if I'm remembering right.
That is for all of the other seats, but the council
Right.
seats are specifically selected by council members.
But that's what I'm saying, that us that are not on council are voted on by us here. And the council is council, and I'll leave the council, their wisdom of the mayor, whatever, I'm not gonna get into who they select.
Sure.
They can select, they can select, and we have to work with whatever, because I have no vote in that fight.
Yeah.
And stuff, so. I have a question. You have a January 28th. I was looking at the calendar, and that's a Tuesday. And the Thursday would be the 30th. Is it January 30th is our next meeting?
We normally meet.
No,
Is
we're
it
the 4th Tuesday of the month, so it'd be the 28th.
Fourth Tuesday, okay, because it's Thursday, January 28th.
So it says Thursday on our
Oh.
minutes.
Oh.
So it's a
Sorry about
Thursday.
that. I'll get that
I didn't wanna
fixed.
know if it was Thursday, it was the 30th, and Tuesday the 28th, okay.
Thanks for that correction. So let's go back up to the appointment of council. I think that, Rebecca, if the group is comfortable with this, what I would say is let's follow back over with Ryland just to see what the process is that, or if we have to formally request a new person. Would you be able to do that from a staff level perspective or follow up with Ryland?
Yes, absolutely. But then they will be doing that at the meeting on the 21st, or sorry, yeah, on the 21st. So they will be doing that before we meet again.
So would you be able to follow up with Ryland then if we need to, as a board, make a special request, or what our process is, what we need to do?
Yep.
Is that okay with everybody? I don't think there's an action there, but just want to make sure people are fine with that direction. And then the other topic that was brought up in the beginning, and I had some questions about joint meetings, between all of our boards. It seems like best practices would be that we would want to lean into some type of joint meeting, whether it's, I think Rebecca, you said twice a year or once a year, something that happens on a regular basis to keep us connected as groups. I'd be really interested in the group's perspective on that. And it's not driven by this, but it's more like about our work and our work plan and how are we staying connected as we think about moving forward. Does this group have any thoughts about that at all?
I would say just as long as it's led in a concise manner where it's not, I mean, meetings are great, but if you have it, if they go too long,
Yeah.
they just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would share that in my professional career, we hold once a year a joint meeting with city council, Olmsted County commissioners, and our 2 EDA boards. And it's a facilitated meeting where there's a topic that's discussed. So it's not just a free for all like normal agenda. It is, let's talk about, a certain part of infrastructure or a certain something that's happening or wherever. And then, we have a facilitator that comes in and there's some discussion. And that has been really helpful. And I've seen other cities do the same thing. So that's maybe something to consider when we think about our yearly work plan, or if there's a certain topic or things. Rebecca, I don't know if you have other examples from other cities that work together in this fashion, or if you have other things you'd like to share.
Well, I'm just as a quick, I guess, as to why we did it initially in one of my communities. In one community, we actually had a city council who felt that the EDA was going rogue. We had probably 5 or 6 projects going that were upwards of $2 million that we were working with in grant money. And people in the community were also wondering what was going on, because we were sending in our minutes, but nobody was really getting a chance to ask questions unless they came to the meetings. So to make sure that we got a chance to make sure everyone was on the same page, we started having those meetings. And following that, the number of phone calls coming in and asking about projects to City Hall was cut in half, because people were able to take a look and they knew where to find information following that meeting. And then also, I think all of the board members on all 3 boards ended up having a lot more confidence in one another on all levels, because they were able to see what the processes were and hear more about what happens with a project from part A to part B and so forth. So I think it's really great for being able to bring everybody down to the same level and bring everybody up to speed on all projects, even if it hasn't been in front of their board yet officially.
I appreciate that feedback. Other thoughts?
I think that, at least once a year, but again, I don't want to do it in January, February, because I want to see where they're headed or what's going on. And then I believe that it is a good thing to have. Absolutely, you meet and you do that, but I guess, new council on, they're gonna get their feet wet on the council, the new members that vote on the council the first couple of months, and someone's gonna show up here. In a couple of them, we kind of know where we're headed. And then I think that later in the year, I think we need to bring a discussion up, say that, maybe April-ish or whatever, that we could hold a meeting, and we might have more, Rebecca, you might have something more on the plate. You might have the branding. You might have, things coming back at that point. If the branding comes down, then we could all meet together at that and say, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think you're bringing up a great point. I do agree with you that the timing of it should be later. We don't want to do it right away. We want to make sure that new people that are elected. It will be interesting too to see where we land on a timeline for the branding work. I mean, that could be a great workshop for all. Bring up a great point, Jan. So depending on what the timeline is, response and work plan, there could be an opportunity for
Well, as a community
groups
come
to
in
work
and talk,
together.
to see the people meet and all decide.
So that might, so perhaps, other thoughts?
I think in favor of collaboration and communication between the groups. So, yeah.
So perhaps maybe this is something that we just take back to Rylan again to share our discussion, and then maybe there's a process in which he either brings it up in communication with council or it's brought up with Jason, and we can start to think about what that might look like and alignment and timelines. Does that sound appropriate, Rebecca, and to the group?
Absolutely. Yep.
And every year thereafter, if there's a project that comes up the community wants, that you would meet, as you said, the county, everybody meets on a kind of project or thing, that if there's something, maybe a development or something come in, that your meeting doesn't have to be set at every April, but if there was something kind of coming up that you do that joint meeting, that once a year joint meeting for a cause, and it makes sense to me to do that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks for that discussion. Any other walk-on items for the group?
I just want to circle back to one thing, and that is, are we okay with accepting and moving forward with half a budget for next year? Or do we want to be put on the agenda for January to inquire as to why, what the expectation is? Because I think, like, we just approved the work plan that does take 32 hours a month of somebody to put into place. Can we go to the new council and say, can you reconsider this? What the discussion I saw taking place the other night at the council meeting, there was no input. I mean, they didn't ask anybody from economic development. There was nobody representative there. I didn't know we needed to be. But I just feel like we were represented, and I just would like them to reconsider almost. I think it was a close vote.
Rebecca, you said that the budget is approved. Are there amendments made at this point? I have a couple questions. Maybe I'll ask, because I do think that as a board, or a commission, we may want to decide if we want to take action such as go to public comment period at the next council meeting, draft a letter, or some type of action that shows that we see this and disagree with the decision and re-acknowledge all the work that we're doing and where we're moving forward. But I also am wondering, Rebecca, I would love to talk about that, but before we get to that, is there any action that can be taken to change our budget, or do you know from a city process why this is what it is? There's no amendments at this point.
At this point, there is no way to change it. The budget has been set. However, in future terms, there are those budget discussions like the one that I attended, trying to, rationalize why we need the hours that we have. But if the budget gets set earlier in the year, which is typically what happens, this is a very, very late time for approving a budget. Usually it happens in September-ish, August and
They
September.
were actually trying to get it approved in January. They were trying to push it to January, but they did not want to let them do that.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
don't know
right?
that you can, because of the fact that you've already started that year then.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But there is ways to be able to have those discussions. It's just a matter of if it's being received, because we did try at the budget meeting that they had, but unfortunately it just didn't come through for us. But the good thing is that anytime on a council meeting, we do have Rylan and we do have whoever our other individual will be that hopefully will be sitting there and ready to support the EDA as well.
So I wonder, as we're new and learning about this process and where do we need to show up, I wonder if there's a way just to make a note for next budgeting cycle that, well, Rebecca is the EDA director.
Right.
We have a board, partner with you, or a committee or a subcommittee or something like that is working with you, just making sure that you're getting that support. So maybe that's something we want to note. Does that sound okay to the group? In our work plan. So the second question, I guess, is maybe to you, what you were saying is like, what is our response and how do we give that response? Is it a written response? Is it at council? How should we respond? And I'd be interested in the group's thoughts, if you have any thoughts at all. Just how we should respond to council, like, it seems like we should have like a verbal response of some sort, like whether it's at public comment and we're submitting a letter, or just just what does the group think?
In what fashion do you let them know that we feel like we're a valid group and have a reason to exist, essentially? I mean,
yeah, I think it would be something that we're disappointed in the council's decision to cut the budget. I think it's probably recapping again in writing the accomplishments of the organization.
Yeah.
And the including, the community input to the work plan, including the grants, including, the collaboration, like
Yeah.
what we talked about.
Yeah.
And that with this reduced budget, we will not be able to accomplish as much, as we wanted, but I feel like there's some way we need to bring to their attention that.
I guess I generally advocate for the face-to-face. I feel like if you're, and you would probably be a great mouthpiece for us, to be at the city council meeting or ask for that blurb of their next meeting, and we can all attend, and support and add any bits or pieces that we want to, add, but no, I absolutely feel like that would be just. I don't know if it accomplishes anything, because we have to wait another 10 or 12 months to get back on full steam ahead, it sounds like.
It's on record, and.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
In the public comments.
Yep.
Yeah, I like both ideas. I like coming to the public comments and, I think would be a great spokesperson, Jamie, or anybody, or everybody could speak at that point in time. But I also think that it's important, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's important to put it in writing. And not only to say what we have accomplished, but what we everything is objective. When you listen to somebody else, it's objective what you hear. You might tell me one thing and you might tell Jamie the same thing, and she may hear it one way and I hear it another. But I think it's important that we convey to them that this is what we understood you to say about economic development, and we don't believe you have a clear understanding of what it is we do. Is that too harsh? But I mean, I feel like as a nurse, you got to listen to the people, you got to gather the information before you make any kind of an assessment. And I feel like the information wasn't gathered before that assessment was made.
Well, it feels like maybe a decision was made and then changed by new council perhaps, right? I mean, the origination of this EDA just a couple of years ago was an effort to recognize growth is coming. Let's do it in a responsible way. Let's get input. And we're subgroup, and so to want to shrink it now, I guess it seems like the real question is: does the current city council want to grow and grow responsibly, or do we want to maintain a bedroom community without much growth? I feel like if they are advocating for growth, it feels foolish not to put some resources here.
Right, and the people that were advocating to cut the budget were also people that I understand Jan said earlier on were ones that wanted to
originate the
EDA.
Yeah.
So the new guy on the board, on the council, he was very supportive of the EDA, what he knew of it, because he'd heard from the public. It was the people that have been sitting on this city council for the last several years who made it known that they really didn't understand what our mission was, or even though Rebecca's gone over it, I don't understand how, unless we put it in writing, how people can comprehend what our concern is.
This is one of the accomplishments that the community was involved in, this right here. Again, this is how much we've done, because I keep track of every month to do that. And I was asked to be on the EDA by the board members and put a letter in and come before the board. Each and every one of us did that. We took the time out of our evening to come and speak, and they took a vote, and we wrote our biography or whatever they wanted. We followed through with what they asked for us to do. And so we signed on as being committed to do what we do. And I'm really perplexed now because I'm not seeing that. And you know what? Politics is a blood sport. And I don't know if this has something to do with politics or whatever it has to do with whatever, but they asked the community and the input of the community to do this, and we involved the community. We come up with a pack, we come up with all what the community wanted. The community can't ask us for any more than that because we involved them in that. This gentleman here sits at every meeting with us, and we've asked for input and things like that. So I'm a little perplexed, and I think if you want to speak to the board, again, you can speak to the board, but, I see nothing wrong with it, putting that down, but they also asked us to put some skin in the game, and I did put skin in the game with everybody at this ground here, put skin in the game. And now, one board member was not on the board at the time, was appointed, and he's been elected, Paul. And so that's a change there that has changed, and he's coming on, and so on and so on.
One of the people that voted to cut it in half was
Right.
another board member who is no longer, he will not be serving after the first of the year.
Correct, but I mean, that kind of throws me, because those are the people that all asked. I mean, there's people on the board here that have resigned, there's people, city council, since we've been on this board, have resigned and have gone their ways, and there people have been put on, gone, this. I've seen the staff in the office come and go, like,
Been chaos ever since.
well,
we-
anyway, so I mean, I see a lot of things, so.
It has been kind of
Again, to
chaotic.
stand up and do that, I guess I wanna see it the first year, when the new board comes in, I'm gonna see what they sit at the chairs here with us. And break bread with us and see how they do it and what they feel about it. And
So if we're gonna do that, Jan, then are we gonna come to the city council meeting and ask to be put on the agenda?
well, you can do that, but this week right here, I leave on the 17th and I don't return until the 26th.
Okay, well, we're meeting on.
Council
And
meeting?
so I will not be able to be at that meeting, so it's not that I wouldn't attend with you, it's just that I already had a year and a half quiet commitment.
Let's do some understand what our process is. So Rebecca, council is the 21st of January, correct?
Yep.
And
And just note that if you're doing during the public portion, the public is able to speak, but the council has no
Yes.
obligation to return comment.
and they
If you're part of the agenda, then there is that discussion with council, but if you're just doing the public input, then it's just the input and they have the right to address you for it, and they also have the right to completely move on to their next topic.
And not say a word, but you actually put in what you get on the record. It will be on the record during comment period, it is taped, and people will see what has been stated. And if there's any comments or anything else, and that's all you can do, is that you showed up.
Unless you're on the agenda. If
Unless
you're on the
you're,
agenda, you can have a discussion.
you can have the discussion, but they might not want to discuss it with you either.
Well, so typically, let's ask the question. So Rebecca, typically an agenda item is around a certain topic, typically, correct?
Yep.
So I'm just thinking about what a proposed topic to council would be in this. And, the pros and cons of each. I think in the past, just observing kind of other interactions, it seems like you said, Jan, public comment is a place to get on the record. So, you're able to speak, they don't speak back to you typically, but it is recorded. And then at times, people also will submit a letter that gets included into the packet, I believe, right? So if there's a letter that's distributed, we asked it to be distributed, council, it'll go into the packet that's also becomes part of the public record, correct?
Correct, yes.
So the difference between an agenda item then would be that there would be a topic that we would want to discuss or an update that we would want to give to them. Is that correct?
Yes, like if we decided that we wanted to talk with them and present our annual plan or our work plan, and have discussions with them about what maybe they feel the priorities should be on it, just to get some feedback from them. And then at that point, if there's a lot of excitement showing, we could always ask for an explanation for why it was cut.
Well, I'm kind of one of those people that want to cut right to the chase and just say, go with an agenda item that says we're asking for an exception to policy for this budget of 2025. And the exception is we want you to add back the half that you took away from EDA, and this is why. And that's, I think, what our discussion could be, rather than coming through the back door with, they've seen our plan, they've read our plan. If they haven't, everybody is accessible to everybody. So I say, get it on the table. If you come through the back door with all the other, we're looking at another 4.5-hour city council meeting. Let's be concise with what we do.
I'm just not sure if Jason will be able to put it on the agenda. I mean, because of the fact that that it is already set, and unfortunately there is no, because they've already allocated all the money, so there's no other money to allocate. So if we got that money back, we'd be taking it from someone else. And that would be a whole bigger
Who took it from
discussion for
us?
budget.
Who took it from us? Because it was there. They
It
just
was
took it.
never, it was never there. It was what we were asking for.
Okay.
We were asking for, in the budget, you asked for, we asked, and we went up a little bit from last year, but we asked for it.
Okay.
And
And I
so
do
they,
think part of it is throughout the budget process, our budget did include the full amount of time up until the very last discussion, and that's when it became a discussion of cutting it. So it really just happened last minute.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay positive and look forward to working with you, Rebecca. If we wanna get you half-time, whatever we can do, and I can only hope that they see the production from the group as positive, and in future that we can get that budget put up, and if there is something, I'm not afraid to go back to council and ask them later in the year if we needed some money. Go back and say, is there anywhere that you can, they always got a little savings, they always got a little something somewhere, that if something comes up and we needed, maybe not the full 16, but if we needed Rebecca for a little time, they could come up with a little bit of money to work out our issue that we might need to be done. I mean, I'm just looking to see how you can do things and ask them and say, okay, here's, and struggle through it. And I think that as the new members come on board and see what we can do and positive what we can do, that they will turn around and say, you are positive. We're gonna do that.
A follow-up question, Rebecca, I have is, if we were to do a joint letter from our group, and just thinking through open meeting laws and how we build that letter, so, we can't meet outside of this time together. But if the group, like, this is what I'm thinking in my mind. One is I would encourage those who can attend to attend the council meeting on the 21st. And I would need to check my schedule, but I'd be happy to go. But I think we need to represent ourselves as board members. And then maybe a joint letter from our board that kind of lays out that piece. But I just don't know, Rebecca, my question is how do we build a letter abiding by open meeting laws so that we're not routing some, talking outside of about.
I think if there is a letter that anyone would like to, like if somebody wanted to draft it, then the best thing to do would be to send that draft to me, and I will blind copy each of you on it to get feedback, and then I can forward that feedback in my own words to whoever's writing it to compile all that together. So it still travels all of the information around, but it doesn't allow for discussion, if that makes sense.
So one quick question on open meeting laws. If we were all, for example, to show up at a council meeting and speak public comment about an issue like this, would they consider us holding a meeting because we are all together as the EDA board sitting in the room? And the open meeting laws say, well, that's actually a forum because they're all together and they're all going to talk about an issue about EDA, and it has not been publicly addressed. I'm just asking that question.
No, that's a great question. Absolutely. What would end up happening is when you do attend a large meeting at able to do that as a group, but if there are going to be individuals speaking, say it was the 4 of you who were going to be there, I would recommend that 2 of you leave the room during the time when someone is speaking. Because otherwise it will be considered a quorum in the room by having that discussion. So it would be something where you'd have to have people leave at a certain point and they could not participate in that certain portion.
Rebecca, would we ever put a note, would another option be to follow the open meeting laws and posting 72 hours in advance that there could be a quorum of EDA commissioners attending this meeting?
Absolutely.
So that could be another way.
Be on the safe side.
And I think so we could do that too if there's enough people. So then that way we're abiding by the laws at the same time.
And then we don't have.
Just protecting it. I just want to make sure.
I think it's a great question. We want to make sure that we're following the rules.
We meet at 6:30.
And that's something we could just ask Jason to be able to do when he posts for the next meeting, is they'd be able to state that there may be a quorum
Okay.
of the EDA in attendance.
Okay, so maybe to recap and just to make sure that we're feeling, we're aligning with each other, is that one, we're encouraging our members to attend a council meeting to share feedback during public comment period time. The second thing is that, and if the group is okay with it, I could start a draft and I'll give it to Rebecca that tries to capture the discussion tonight, and that she would send it out to the group for feedback, and that we'll make sure we have consensus again, and then it would come from the board to council to be in that packet, which is the group okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So those, we can do those two things. I think that the third thing is there an agenda topic, and when is the right time, to speak with them, and whether it's, an updated work plan discussion, or if there's something else that we want to discuss with them, we should think about new council members. What is the right time to do that? Is it spring? Is it, sometime, like when do we have more engagement with with the new council? And perhaps that's March or April that we start having just some discussions about, is there an agenda item where we provide a more formal update to the council?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Does that sound okay to the group? Okay, so Rebecca, if you could bring up to maybe perhaps Jason that we would in the spring love to be able to provide an EDA update on the formal council agenda.
Yep, absolutely.
An update that we're planning on submitting a letter, and that also if he could do the announcement for that we would be open meeting laws, that we would be together on that date. And if there's anything that's not following correctly, can you let us know?
Yep, absolutely. And as soon as I hear back from Jason on all of these, I'll make sure that I send out a note to confirm with you all.
Jeez. Thank you, Rebecca. We have a question.
Permission to speak.
Permission granted.
So quick question. So at each of the city council meetings, there's a standing agenda item for EDA updates. And I don't know why, but quite frankly, every meeting I've been to, it's just always, there's no updates. So whether that's given some perception, I don't know what it is, why Ryland or whoever hasn't made comments, but I guess the letter you're talking about, because this is a big topic tonight, and something like that be tied into that upcoming meeting. I don't know.
I didn't quite hear you. Did you say that the EDA is always on
There's a standing spot for updates, and I know you said the minutes are included in the city council packet, which it sounds like, but in terms of the updates, it just gets, every meeting it gets glossed over. And obviously I come to these, so I hear what is discussed.
Yeah.
So I know there's things to share, but it's not. That's, again, not my spot. I'm just bringing that up from my perspective or my perception of it when I listen. I'm like, well, nothing's shared, so I don't know if that's creating some of that. I'm just calling that out.
So when it's on their agenda for updates, it's just them that talks about the updates. It's not the people in
No,
the,
it's just, it's a
Just
standing
council
agenda
members.
item, but basically it just moves on to where there's no updates to share, so they move on. So again, that
Gotcha.
could be part of the perception. I don't know. I'm just.
Are they acknowledging the minutes during that time, or that it's in the packet, or is there Rebecca, do you know what's required, or what, has anything been asked of you to do during that time?
No, not at this point, because typically that's why there's two members of council on EDA, is so that they are able to provide those updates. However, for example, when they're talking about the updates for maintenance, someone is there from maintenance to be able to provide some updates as well. So if that's something that we need to look at doing, we certainly can. It just cuts into hours a little bit.
I would think that during the update, we are a committee, they're on a committee. They're on the EDA, which is kind of a committee, so the updates of that, they should be giving an update that I attended that, and this is what we're doing.
So
And that's why you have two council members on it, that they can come back and tell the rest of the council
well,
what it.
Ryland the other night at that meeting, he went right down the list of everything
Okay.
Sure.
well,
we do, but
a more formal update. I agree. When I watch council, there are other departments that give updates
Right.
during that time. So
right.
Rebecca, I may think again, this might be a Ryland Jason question of, can we, looking into 2025, can we be a bit more formal with our updates, and can we make sure we're acknowledging what's happening in your reports, and provide any other updates during that time? And how do we?
Yeah, And I could make sure that I put together at least a small paragraph or something for our council members to be able to speak during that time and make sure that something's being said.
Yeah. And I think my question would be is, does a member of our EDA commission attend that, you know, like, just like others do, or like, what is the formal process to it so that is it Ryland or a member of council that speaks to it, or do we need to have it, or should we have another member there?
Typically it would be one of our EDA members who are also council members.
Okay.
But if it is something that's more complicated, for
Okay.
example, if we were talking about our work plan or we were talking about a big project that's coming up, I'm always able to attend instead. Or if another member feels more comfortable, they also would be able to attend and provide those. But typically for a committee like that, it's one of the board members who sit on council.
They have the update for the zoning every time they have it, and the council member Jim gives that report. So yeah, it would be the same type of thing, I would think.
It would be natural fit for maybe not Ryland because he's got so much else on his plate, but whomever else on city council is.
Right.
So that Nancy figure out.
So would you be able to then, I guess that's just a staff request, to talk to Ryland, Jason, and let's more formalize how we're providing updates during that time at council in 2025?
Absolutely.
Give us feedback on what's needed for that, or if there's any commissioner support that you need help with. All right, any other walk-on items that we want to discuss tonight?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed,
Great job, Jamie.
motion carried. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rebecca, again for all your
Merry
great work.
Christmas,
Thank
Rebecca.
you.
Yep. Thank you all and Merry Christmas.
You.